Good Friday! You guys, today's episode is going to be absolute fire. It may piss off some people just because of the power that we're gonna share.
I don't think so.
But I think that for the most part, you guys are absolutely going to love it. So let's introduce our very special guest today.
You guys, hold on a second. The way that we came about this guest was somebody had told me what book they were reading. I was like, oh, I admire some skills that this person has. I got the book. I started reading it. I decided that it is a life Bible and that everybody should read it. And then Sarit was like, I want to read John Maxwell. And I was like, yes, John Maxwell is fantastic, but you have to read this book. So she started reading it. She's like, oh my God, this book is amazing. And I was like,
and then we reached out to that person immediately. So let's introduce him. You guys, Matt Fury. Matt, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right, but you can tell me later. Is the author of the international best-selling combat conditioning, Combat Abs, the Unbeatable Man, and Expect to Win, Hate to Lose. Do you guys think that that person's a winner? You bet. We're going to get right to it. Furry won 1985 NCAA National Wrestling title, weighing at 167 pounds, and the gold medal. At the 1997 Shuai Chiao Kung Fu World Championships. As well, Furry is the president of the Psycho-Cybernetics Foundation, you guys. This book, you need to get it, by the way. And today we're going to be chatting about success in general, you guys. We're going to be chatting about body transformation and how to be in charge of your future and your life based on the teachings of Psycho-Cybernetics. So, that being said, Matt, welcome to Espresso.
Hello. Great intro.
And warm him up in the chat, team. Warm him up.
That was a very good pronunciation of difficult to pronounce Chinese-ism. So good job. I didn't even have to coach you.
Nice work.
All right. Well, I will share with you a fun fact. English is a second language of mine, so maybe that gave me an advantage. Matt, thank you so much for taking your time, to share with us some powerful stories and teachings today. And I guess let's begin by taking it all back. Obviously, we are in the same industry as well, which makes this even so much more powerful. But what got you into wrestling in the first place? And how did you get into, this industry?
Well, getting into wrestling was a product in part of my upbringing. I had 4 older brothers, and I was 8 years of age, and there was a 1 week to 2 week training period in the area through the high school to find future wrestlers. And I went to that every year for a number of years. And then when I got into high school, that's when I really took to it in a big way. As a freshman, I made it a goal that I would be a state champion, and that I would wrestle for my idol, Dan Gable, Olympic champion, and he was the head coach at University of Iowa. So those were 2 goals of mine, and one of them happened. I got into the state finals. I beat the defending state champion in the quarterfinals. I got into the finals, and I lost. But I did attract Gable's attention and ended up going to the University of Iowa to wrestle. Ultimately, after 3 years there and a lot of good instruction and learning, I transferred with some other guys on the Iowa team who wanted to make sure. At that time, Iowa won the national title every year. So you had to basically win the national title in the preseason to be the number 1 guy. So myself and 3 other guys from the Iowa team, with Gable's blessing, went and helped begin a new program, or actually revitalized, breathed some life into a new program in Pennsylvania called Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania. And all four of us won national titles there. And then after college, I moved to California, and that's when I got into the personal fitness training business. My initial idea was that I would be a writer and a columnist, but I also wanted to train people and show them the Iowa way. This is the way we do it. And if you model what collegiate wrestlers do, you're probably going to get incredibly fit. I began by just teaching high school wrestlers, but that quickly morphed into moms and dads and regular adults, executives, lawyers, doctors contacted me wanting to get trained. And one of the first people that I started working with was this 57-year-old gentleman named Jack. He was a broker, and he would come into the gym and he would see upon my desk, I'd always have some motivational, inspirational book to read. And we would talk about the various books. Then one day out of the blue, he says, have you ever read Psycho-Cybernetics? And amazingly, I had never read it and didn't really know what it was or hadn't really heard about it. And he says to me what you said earlier, well, that's the Bible of self-development. And no higher recommendation than that. So when the session was over, I drove down to the bookstore. This is 1987. And I bought the book, started reading, and same as you, the two of you, man, this is amazing. But it was helpful to me on a number of levels. One was to help me with my business, to help me increase sales, have more clients. Part of it was this whole idea with the self-image. It wasn't just to achieve goals. It was also to heal internal scars. Mm-hmm. And I had external scars, but I wasn't really aware at that time how deep the internal scars were. And as a competitive athlete, I won the national title as a junior, but as a senior, I didn't. So when I left college, my overall thinking about myself as a competitive wrestler was that I had failed, that I wasn't successful, because if I was, I would have won 2 national titles, not just 1. If I was really successful, I would also be a world champion, not just a national champion. And if I was really, really good, if I really wanted to call myself a success, then I would have won an Olympic championship and a world championship and a national championship and a state championship. So it was actually, I didn't realize how much it was standing in my way until I got the book. But when I first started training and coaching high school wrestlers, I had this thought that I'm not qualified to do this. Mm-hmm. See? Mm-hmm. Well, who am I to coach these guys and teach them how to be champions? I've only won 1 national title. as though you can just walk down the street, throw a stone in any direction and hit a national champion. You can't. They're few and far between in any sport or in any activity. So that's how I got started with it, and then I began using it, not just with myself, but in conversation and guidance of my clients. Had no idea if you'd have told me, well, one day in the future, you'll actually be the rightful owner of all of these books, and you'll be promoting it worldwide, I couldn't have fathomed such a thought, but it actually did happen. And it happened in stages. Starting in 2003, Dan Kennedy, who owned he owned the Psycho-Cybernetics Foundation at that time, he set me up as the master licensee. So I ran the website, I sent out the emails, I was in charge of the product, and so on. And then in 2005, he fingered me by saying, well, why don't you just buy it? Because I'm running the thing. I'd been doing it for 2 years, and before I could make certain moves or do certain things, I'd have to run it by him first. And he would always agree with everything I was going to do, but why don't we just eliminate that step? And so that's what happened. In 2005, I think on my birthday, we finalized the transaction, and I've been running it ever since. So the book you showed is Psycho-Cybernetics Updated and Expanded, where they wanted me to go through it and add a forward and afterward and some commentary throughout. And that's what I did. And it's nice when I hear from people how meaningful the comments have been that I added, including telling this story about my collegiate wrestling days.
Yep, I remember it was at the very, very beginning. But of course, want to share a little bit of context, because you guys, like, if you're serious about achieving any goal in life, make it a point to read this book and follow the instructions in it.
If you've read this book, right.
Yes.
You will understand why Sarit is still stuck on chapter 2.
Intentionally.
Right. And what's crazy too is I didn't even realize it that Dan Kennedy was such a big part of this. I started consuming his material just as of recent, like a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And Sarit was like, "Did you know Dan Kennedy?" Da, da, da. And I'm like, "What?" Like, literally, I was thinking in my mind, like, every successful person knows this.
Mm-hmm.
And if you embrace it and you're open-minded to accept it and act on it, you will see, like, you understand, like, life is a game that you get to make the rules to. And life is a game that if you know the rules, you can win every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even if
it's really something. Yeah.
You go.
Go ahead.
Please.
Well, it's really something because the book came out in 1960, and Vince Lombardi, who the Super Bowl trophy that's awarded each year is in his name. He won the very first 2 with the Green Bay Packers. But after he passed away, his son, Vince Lombardi Jr., was going through his bookcase, and he found his copy, his dog-eared, underlined, notes written in the margin copy of Psycho-Cybernetics. So the very first Super Bowl coach that the trophy is now named after was definitely on to Psycho-Cybernetics in a big way. After I took over, there was a gentleman by the name of Monty Clark. He was an assistant coach at not university, but for the Miami Dolphins when they went 17-0 and won the Super Bowl. And he contacted me and told me that he used the book and the principles in it to coach the linemen that went from basically being nobodies. And the way he explained it to me was, these were just guys we picked up off the street. Well, it's not accurate, but we get the idea of what he's saying. It's directionally accurate, is that they weren't number one draft pick.
Right.
They were just good players, but he turned them into all pros and Hall of Famers by using the principles in the book. So when I first moved to California, I remember going to an Oakland Athletics game, and I'd always get the program before the game and sitting, and they'd have the bio of the players and best book you ever read or most helpful, best movie you saw, favorite song, etc. It was amazing how many players in 1987 on that team had mentioned Psycho-Cybernetics as the best book they'd ever read. And Oakland is a low budget team. They spend about $30 to $40 million a year fielding their entire team, yet they're in the playoffs frequently. And back during that era when Tony La Russa was there, they were in the World Series 3 or 4 times, and won it. I think they won it once, but they were in it at least three, maybe 3 times in a row. And then he, of course, moved on to the Cardinals. Now, I don't know Tony La Russa, but if that many players on the team were reading that specific book, it might have trickled down from him. It might, I don't know, but it definitely has spread worldwide since it came out in 1960. Mostly the way the two of you described it is you heard it from somebody who heard it from somebody who heard it from somebody, and the next thing you know, you've all read it and you're all amazed. So
you said I want a little bit of context because I'm probably not the only one, but you said that they would spend 30 to 40 million as compared to what would other teams do?
Well, let's say the New York Yankees or the Los Angeles Dodgers, they're spending 200 plus million, 185 million, 200 million. They will gladly pay the fine, the multi-million-dollar fine for going over the so-called limit, if they think it's going to win them a World Series. Now, it might be that Oakland A's might be as high as 50, 60 million or something, but it's not 100 million. And it's not even close to what these major market teams are willing to pay. There are San Diego Padres, for example, they're paying at least one player $30 million a year. One player.
That's so crazy.
That's crazy. And the Padres are not even that great.
And all they need to do is spend $25.
Yeah. So again, when I say 30, 35 million, it's probably more around the time when Moneyball came out, but let's say it's 60. You can Google it and figure it out pretty quickly, but it's nowhere even close to what the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Chicago Cubs, Detroit, the Mets, Boston. These teams put out some major bucks. So
let's get to it for somebody who hasn't yet read the book. I mean, when that book was recommended to me the first time, I'm like, wow, that is just a really big word. So, for somebody who's hearing this the first time, just like me, about, like 2 months ago, what is Psycho-Cybernetics?
Well, psycho, we know, has to deal with the mind. Cybernetics is a word that comes from the Greek, and it means helmsman, or somebody who's steering a ship to port. So when you put the two together, you're talking about the art or the science of steering yourself to a productive, useful goal. Most importantly, though, Dr. Maltz would say that the most important goal of them all is peace of mind. You see, so it wasn't how much money you made. It wasn't what awards you had received and how big your house was and all that. Those are externals. He's not against them, but those don't necessarily give you peace of mind. One of the things he would say is that with peace of mind, you have everything, and without it, you have nothing. See, so he looked at that as the ultimate. And psycho-cybernetics, the practice of it, especially the theater of the mind and the other exercises in the book, what they do for you, to put it in the simplest layman's terms I can, is they give you a feeling of peace of mind and happiness for no reason whatsoever. See? So if you think about the young baby coming into the world, it doesn't take a whole lot to make the baby laugh, to get a joyful expression, etc. The baby hasn't really accomplished anything yet. The baby doesn't know how to read or write or draw or speak multiple languages, or even get up on 2 feet and walk. Doesn't yet have any of that. So there's no accomplishments, but yet the baby is still happy. And I look at that as part of what the heck happened to us. How did we become so unnatural? How is it that the baby doesn't have a worry in the world, and that the more intelligent we get, the more we tend to worry and use our imagination unproductively? And so this is what happens, is when you go back into the past and going back into the past, there's one is the healing of the internal scars, healing of the wounds that aren't on the outside, they're inside, and you heal those. And secondly, you go back into the past and you relive, not just think about, but you actually relive as though it's happening again in the present, your best moments, your winning moments. Now, what does that do? It basically puts the high octane fuel into your brain and nervous system. And you start, because you relived it, you basically start to be that winning, or you have that winning energy going again. Even though it's in the past, what's the past? When I'm telling a story from the past, I actually relive it while I'm telling it. I feel the same emotions. So when you go back in and you close your eyes and you visualize and remember, you reactivate those emotions, you reactivate all the mental imagery associated with it, and it starts to basically change your aura, your demeanor, your personality, and all that in the present moment, whether you've accomplished a goal or not. So this is one of the fundamental differences between self-development programs other than Psycho-Cybernetics, is there's no going back into the past. It's all about setting goals for the future. But where's the high octane fuel? Where's the energy that makes you feel confident for no reason other than, well, I had this memory of hitting a home run when I was 7, and I won the spelling bee when I was 11, and when I was 13, this happened. What's that have to do with you being in business? They're totally unrelated. They're not unrelated, because it's the emotional energy of the past victories that actually tells the brain, I know you haven't done it in this area yet, but don't worry about it. We'll take care of the details. You just keep feeding me the energy I need to move along the correct track.
It's interesting. So a lot of our community comes to us because they want to lose weight. And if they lose weight, then they'll be happy. And what we teach is actually like the reverse of that, where you have to learn to be happy. And then by default, you treat yourself with respect. You feed yourself the food that your body wants. You exercise because it is great for your heart and blood circulation and your strength and your bone density and your independence. And yes, you get fit. But when people are so focused on just having a specific outcome, thinking that that's the thing that's going to make them happy, they're continuously struggling because what they're actually focused on is all the things they don't want.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting that you're like, the most important goal is peace of mind, because if we can accomplish that, and we know, like in the book, it talks about, knowing specifically what the goal is, but then also relaxing away from it and not over efforting to achieve it. Right.
Yes.
So,
Yes. And this is where it's not clearly spelled out in the book, but I go over it with people I coach, is that there are a couple different kind of goals. There's the target-based goal, where you know what exactly how you want to look, or the weight you want to have, etc. And then there's the process-oriented or type of system goal. And this way works for a lot of people who get caught into this emotional roller coaster of, can I do it or can I not do it? I don't know if I can lose 50 pounds or 100 pounds, or, in today's world, it might be 200 pounds. Well, a guy I coached literally said that to me. He was almost 400 pounds. He said, in the old days, people needed to lose 10, 20 pounds. And that was a big deal. He said, now it's 50, 100, 150, So I never thought about it that way. So, what happens, for example, is I have a guy that I coach, and he wants to improve his business. He wants to make more money, etc. Well, what do you think is going to help you the most? Let's look at this physicality thing. Let's look at this extra weight you're carrying. So he got started on that goal first. And I'll skip to the end of the story, but then I'll go back. But last week he sent me an email, and he's the #1 real estate guy in his area. He sold more houses than he's ever sold. He sold over 100 houses last year, and he accomplished all these goals, but none of which he was able to come close to previously in 20 years. So, having nailed the physical goal first, not just weight loss, but also transformation of his body and how he looked, being able to look in the mirror and the first time in his life see abs. But he never thought that possible. So if I worked with him on, you got to believe and you got to think you can and all that, now you're locking horns. But if I get him into a process goal, let's say, for him, it was to do one exercise, burpees. That's it. And every day, so when he started off at 299 pounds, he probably did one set of burpees, probably 5 or 6, and that was it. That was the workout. He's finished. He's got nothing left. And what he did is every day without fail, he would do the burpees. And one set of 5 turned into 3 sets of 5. This turned into 5 sets of 6 or 7. And then next thing you know, he's doing 10 sets of 15 burpees every morning before he starts work. And what happened? Weight fell off, got abs, got muscles, and along with that, confidence. His body and his mind, he takes with him into every real estate encounter, every single one. So this is huge. People don't think, they think, just make money, forget about your body. They're tied together, and so it's just awesome to see. The other thing is, once you start and you activate one habit, and you don't miss, and you focus on the habit, that becomes the goal. So it's not a target goal, it's an action goal, but you don't miss. You develop an unshakable confidence, and now you take a second habit and you activate that one, and then you take a third one. And it doesn't seem as though it's very much at the beginning. I'm only going to change one thing about myself. Do you have any idea how hard it is over a 1-year period to have one habit that you never miss for an entire year? Do you have any idea how difficult that is? There's always a reason you don't have to do it today. There's always a reason you can, oh, well, I need a week off. But you give yourself a habit in, let's say you're going to walk a mile a day, or you're going to skip rope, or you're going to, do sit-ups or push-ups or burpees or pull-ups. And you can have your hard days and you can have your light days, but you never miss. So you did pull-ups yesterday, you got nothing left. How do you know you got nothing left? So today you're not going to do 100 pull-ups total. You're just going to do one. But you did one and you kept the habit. So this is part of what I teach people and get them going on. And I think I saw something on your Instagram in regard to habits. And so
you're like, I'm so fired up. We have a program that's called the Inner Circle. In the whole like premise and everything that we teach, all our philosophies, like with regards to weight loss and body transformation, is get really good and consistent at doing this thing. When you can prove you've been consistent doing that thing, we'll add another thing. When you can prove you're consistent at doing both of those things, we'll add another thing. And then a year, 2 years down the road, you're like, oh my God, how do I have all these amazing habits? Well, I hardly changed anything, but I changed everything. It's just consistency. And like you said, like not missing a day.
Plus you end up hitting all these targets you never thought you could hit.
Yeah.
You see, and you did it how? By following the process.
Yeah.
Just stick with the process, and all of a sudden the weight came off. But if all you do is focus on the weight or the waistline or the inches, etc., it can drive you crazy because it's too far off, or the goal feels too big.
Yeah.
So if a person has a big goal and it gets them into this negative emotional state about whether they can do it or not, then give them a smaller one. You see? So when they achieve the smaller one, what happens? Confidence goes up. Then all of a sudden, over a period of time, this person now gets the vision for a bigger goal. It's not frightening to them anymore. And they end up going after these goals because they have a track record of winning. See?
And their level of belief continues to elevate and grow.
Continues to go up.
And then you're like, I can literally do at some point you reach this thought of like, I can literally do anything. I've proven it to myself enough times that I can do anything.
Yes. That's what happens.
Yeah. So
I'm glad to see that you're doing that with your people. That is awesome.
It's the only way.
Yes.
So I want to ask you a couple more things, just so that, for one, I feel like we can speak with you all day, but I'm like, okay, like what do they need to hear right now? So I want to talk about why is like so many people are so like terrified of failing. Like the reason why they don't even start to do this one thing is because they're scared of failure.
Paralyzed.
So for one, right, what we do is, we basically reduce the, size of the target so that, you can actually follow through with it. Now, I want to know from you and from the teachings of Psycho-Cybernetics, why is failure not necessarily a bad thing?
Why is what? Failure what?
Not a bad thing.
Failure's genius.
Well, because when you make mistakes and you fail, you have an opportunity to learn. And when you learn, you grow.
Come on.
And the only way you don't learn from your failure is you go into reactive mode instead of learning mode. See, there's two different modes. See, there's the reactive responsive orientation or mode that don't react, respond. What I'm saying is they're the same thing. Something happened. you react or respond. But learning actually requires that you ask yourself a question. See, you don't just say, oh, this sucks, I'm terrible, or I can't do this because. You say, what can I do to turn this around? What can I do to improve? How can I make myself better? That's completely different. So the learning mode is the key. If you fail at something, you make mistakes with something, you just learn to pause, take a deep breath, and craft some really spectacular questions that will get you out of the reactive mode. That's the key. So failure, for example, in my martial arts, in my study, and I'm constantly learning new things. And I was recently given a test. I was recently going to submit a bunch of material I'd been practicing on to an instructor for review. He replied to me, do you want to test on this, or do you just want me to look at it? Well, in deference to him, I replied that, well, what do you prefer? You prefer this as a test? So he says, yes. All right, so we'll make it a test then. And I didn't know specifically what he wanted to see in this test. I had these 5 exercises to do seated, and I had 6 that I had to do that were stand moving. And so I looked at those and I studied them meticulously, and then I submitted all of the material to him. And he looks at it and he starts talking to me and telling me, well, you don't have this in it and this in it, and this strike needs to be this way, and this step, and where's the third step, and what? And I'm thinking, where's he getting this from? Did I have the wrong DVD? Did I use the wrong DVD to study this material? What the hell is off here? And I'm getting very frustrated. I'm getting into reactive mode. But I'm taking a deep breath, I'm staying calm, and I wrote him back and said, my apologies, but I don't have any idea what you're talking about or where you're getting this, and I'm totally confused. And he then went into great detail to tell me, I'm on DVD 1, this is the minute mark, this is the second mark, et cetera, et cetera. And he then tells me all these things that I'm missing. And at first, it was a shock to the system. Why? Because of the word test. See, if I just given him the material for review and he told me, oh, do this, 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 and this, no big deal. But as soon as I took on the word test, now he's giving me feedback the same as he would if I was just submitting material, but it's hitting me harder. And I had to then take a few deep breaths and think about it, and then get back to him and say, all right, I'll get to work on this and I will fix it. So I took a few days and just looked at it, didn't even practice, just watched it. And there's a reason for that I can explain. But why would I just watch? Because I'm firing the mirror neurons. That's the short answer. But it can go on, so I'll cut that short. But I'm firing the mirror. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I then, when I came back to the material to physically practice it, man, this is awesome. Then I resubmit material to him, and in the resubmitting of the video, I said, let me know if I've got this correct. If I do, I'll move on to the next part. If not, I will redo it as many times as I have to redo it until I get it the way it's supposed to be. Now, when I said that, I was smiling and I was happy. That means I'm not in reactive mode. I'm in learning mode. If I need to do it again, I'll do it again. If I need to redo it 10 times, I'll redo it 10 times. I just want to know when I'm doing it correctly based upon the instruction. So that is a big difference. And it's one is you feel hurt or frustrated, and the other is whether it's correct or not, here it is, and just tell me. Completely different MO. And so that is how you learn from the failure. That's how you learn from the mistakes. And I'm glad that I have a teacher who doesn't just tell me it sucks. You see, I've had that. No, that sucks. That's not it. Well, what am I supposed to do? Figure it out. You see, I've had that. I've had plenty of that. And then I've had the good fortune of having somebody who tells me when it's wrong, but also tells me what's wrong about it and how to make it better. So everything you do in life, you're going to make mistakes. If you're going to get good at something, you better get used to taking a deep breath, taking a step back emotionally, and reviewing it and asking yourself some questions and repeating until you have it. And then when you have it, the reality is you never really have it because you can lose it if you get complacent about it, or you start thinking that you're the greatest and I don't need to train anymore. Look at me. I got everything I want. Nah, all right, go take 3 years off then and come back and see us. And you'd probably be in worse shape than you were when you first showed up. See, so that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, this is why we, Sarit calls it mundaneville. When somebody will lose some weight and then they start to get that confidence back and they start to feel better about themselves and believe in themselves more. You know, maybe they like have the courage to ask for a raise at their job or whatever, right? It translates into other things. And there's this place that Sarit calls mundaneville, where it's like you have to continue doing the things that you did to get there. But if you're like, oh yeah, no, since I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable, like the pain is not as deep anymore. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh yeah, I'll just I can have a cookie, or I can have this thing. And not that any of those things are bad every once in a while, but it's like when you start making exceptions and justifications for things, and then kind of going backwards from the actions that you did to get to where you were, and then you start to slip back, and you have to keep doing the things that you were doing that got you to where you are.
It's really true. And when people get this in their mind that well, when is this program going to be over? I remember when I was in California, I had my gym. Somebody'd I'd sign people up for 3 months at a time and so on. Well, yeah, man, I can't wait when this program is over. What do you mean? So he's already telling me that in his mind, after 12 weeks, this fitness program's finished and he's on to the next thing. But I love the clients you have that they're not looking for it to be over. They're looking for it to continue. If I got this much results in the first 3 months, think where I'm going to be after 3 years. That's the type of person you want.
Yeah. It's a different mindset. And, we tell our people too, we tell them, this is just, we have an 8-week program. We have somebody can join for 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever. And we're like, this is the first 8 weeks of the rest of it, right? Like this is not an 8-week program. This is the beginning of the rest of your life. And so welcome, and that mindset and that perspective really makes a difference, because then somebody can go into their goals and start taking the action, understanding that this is forever and that's okay. So I might as well make it sustainable.
And that's where the short-term goals come in. Those short-term, if all your goals are long-term, when are you ever going to see that you're getting somewhere? See,
Right.
it's too far off. So that's part of what Sarit was asking, I think, as well, was when somebody has a really big goal and they don't necessarily believe they can do it. In fact, the whole idea of accomplishing it is frightening or scary. I'm not one of these people who tells people to set goals that scare you. I think you want to set goals that you are driven to move toward, that you're not afraid that you're going to fail. So how you do that then? Well, you split the atom. So I'm going to be careful how I say it. Sometimes I say it just too matter of factly, and it might sound insensitive. So
That's okay. Our
Just
people
say
can
it.
take it.
yeah, just say it.
Okay.
So when I say how the atom bomb was created, see, I'm not saying I'm in favor of dropping atom bombs. I think dropping bombs is a horrific thing. Nobody wants to ever experience or even hear about. But
Then that makes you a criminal because you've been dropping bombs for the last 50 minutes, Matt.
hey,
Hey.
but they weren't atom bombs. So
Okay.
the key is you got the atom, the smallest particle, and we split it, and we got more power. How's that work? Well, it works. All we know is it works. So if you have a big goal and you cut it in half, and it's scary to you. All right, cut it in half. I don't say get rid of the big one, but let's cut it in half and let's take a look. Do you still feel scared? No. Or yes. If it's yes, then cut it in half again. If it's still yes, cut. Then now maybe you get down to what I call the daily goal. What's the daily goal here? And this is where we get into the action and the process orientation. So you've got this daily goal that you take charge of and never miss. And you do that, let's say for 3 months straight. Now you're in a position of power where you can look at a bigger chunk and say, you know what? I think I can do that. And then after you achieve that, then you can take the bigger one and the bigger one and the bigger one. So my son was talking to me about how it's an interesting thing because as a young boy, he would run through the house. He'd be 2, 3 years of age, 4 years of age. Every night, he'd run through the house for a minimum of 20 minutes to as long as an hour, just back and forth. And we aren't these type of parents that don't allow our children to be rough in the house and to run around and jump on the couches and wrestle and allowed to do all of that. So, but then later on, when in his teenage years, for some reason, he no longer enjoyed running and didn't want to do it. And now he's telling me just recently that he decided to go out and see if he could run a 5K. I'm thinking to myself, a 5K? That's 3.1 miles. That's nothing. When I was at University of Iowa, we run 10Ks. We ran half marathons. But I left that out of it. So and he's telling me what his time was and how hard it was and how difficult it was. And then a week later, he's telling me how he ran it again. And this time he did it at 5 a.m. and he knocked a minute and a half or 2 minutes off his time. I said, well, if you did that at 5 a.m., just think if you ran it at 5 p.m. when your body's awake, etc. So now he's looking at, I want to eventually run a 10K. So let's just project this forward. Let's say he runs it. He gets his time down further and further on this 5K. And let's say it's 20 minutes. And then he decides, I'm going to run a 10K. And he runs that. After he runs that, what's the next step? Well, you know what? I bet I could run a half marathon. You run a half marathon. What's the next? I bet I could run a marathon. Then I think I could do an ultra marathon. You don't start with the ultra marathon unless you're, who's the guy? David Goggins. I think he started with the ultra marathon or whatever. Just prove, I can do this. And he had kidney failure. You see, when you start with the big goal, it can kill you. That's the moral of that story, is that you can actually harm yourself physically by having a physical goal that's too big, too soon, that you jump into without really going through the necessary preparation. Well, if that's the case, how about these people that they've never made, let's say, $50,000 in a single year, and they read a self-development book and they decide that they're going to make $100 million. They're going to be worth $100 million. Well, nothing wrong with that, but let's see you make $100,000 a year. Let's see you double what you currently are doing. Do you have any idea how hard it is to double? And then double it again, and then double it again. All right, then let's take a look at this. So to go from $50,000 a year to $100 million a year with no in between goals, I wouldn't advise that. I would tell people, let's hit some mile markers along the way so that you activate this thing called momentum. When you got momentum, you got that feeling of being unstoppable, and that's what you're talking about. So we need to feel unstoppable. In the beginning, you feel stoppable because you haven't given yourself a small enough target that's easy for your brain to say, I can do that. Let's move forward. See? So it's not about giving people the impossible goal. It's about giving people the goal that gets them going, that activates the momentum. When you've activated the momentum often enough, then you can come up with the impossible goal, and it doesn't scare you, and you go after it.
The higher you believe, the higher you achieve. I love it. Okay, so I feel like I can ask you questions all day long, and I really want to. However, for the sake of your time, to wrap this up, I would love to know, just from the teachings of the book and what you know, I would love to just get your own personal take of what do you think is like, where do you think society is headed by not knowing this within the next 10 years?
Man, I have never been asked that question, and it's a good one. So there's the questions you get asked and you wish you'd never been asked them because they're that bad. But this is a good one. Where is society by not reading this? Well, when you don't understand that there's a face behind your face, see? So I have my external face that I can put on, see? But what's the face behind the face? What's the predominant feeling there? And if you don't have an inner smile, the face behind the face, there's someone smiling there. There's somebody who's proud of you. There's somebody who sees what you're doing and appreciates it. Then you don't have peace of mind, and you're quarreling not only with others but yourself. Your whole life is a battle. So now we do have our internal battles, and we do have our external battles. There's no question there. But think of it this way, is that in martial arts, one of the first things I learned was to smile when you practice. not this Chessy cat laughing smile, but internally, you've got an inner smile. And when you have that, what happens is that your brain and nervous system are now given way more freedom to react to whatever is happening around you. You can see something happening in real time and react subconsciously to what's happening and not even realize how quickly you were able to do such a thing. And the reason is because internally you're free. And what happens is people who don't get this, that don't realize there's a face behind the face, that don't see that there's a self-image that's basically a blueprint for who you are and where you're going, they think that everything is genetic. It's all about genetics. Doesn't have anything to do with how you use your imagination. Or they think it's all based upon how you're slotted, where other people put you. So, wait a minute here. What if I take the reins here and start to consider the idea that I'm in control of my life, that nobody else is? Now, there are people who can make it difficult for me, but ultimately, inside, if I have this smiling face, I now have a power I didn't have before. And this is where you have the creator within. So you have the external creator who gave you an imagination, who gave you life, and now you have internally, you can activate this power as well by seeing that you have a choice, that it isn't an edict, that life doesn't have to be suffering. Life doesn't have to be nothing but pain. Is that inside the suffering and the pain can actually be this feeling of happiness. Is what are you talking about? You know you can't. Yes, you can. I can tell you when I'm running around the wrestling room and I'm in pain and my side hurts and I want to quit, as soon as I picture myself being on the top rung of the victory stand with the gold medal, all of a sudden my side doesn't hurt anymore. So wait a minute, where'd the pain go? The pain went somewhere, but it went somewhere because inside, the face behind the pain made a decision that we're going to keep running here, and we're doing it because I want to achieve this objective. And that objective, the thought of it, makes me feel happy. You see? So you have this objective, and this is the last thing I'll say on this. This is what I call the law of attracting smiles in my Theater of the Mind audio program that you can get on Audible. But is that inside the picture of what it is you want to accomplish, there's got to be a smiling face. There's got to be this idea of this is something that makes me feel good just thinking about it. But at the same time, the face behind the face also has a smile. So this is really true with money. Is people want to make more money, but money's evil. They want to be wealthy, but rich people are not good. You see, they have this thinking. So that means that they have this desire, they have this picture of what is wanted, but inside that desire is actually a frown. It's not good, that it's evil, that it's bad, that the people who have this are not good, etc. Wait a minute here. How can you then attract it if inside and outside you actually think it's not good? So if you have that same image and now you put a smiling type of energy into it, and you have smiling energy coming from the face behind the face, now all of a sudden you're magnetizing what it is you want. And it's a completely different vibration. So that's the whole idea here of the difference it makes. is that it doesn't mean everything is a cakewalk and everything's easy and there's no struggle ever again. What it means is that you'll enjoy most of your life. And the part you don't enjoy is the mistake, the failure, the setback that's there to teach you to put the smiling face back on.
Come on.
You know? So think about it. Is a martial artist, he goes into the ring to fight and he's got to smile. See, it's a fight, but I enjoy this. See, that's the idea here. So life can be a fight, but learn how to enjoy it and make the most of it.
Hey.
And
It's
that
so good.
goes to anything, you guys.
I think so.
Whether it's weight loss, whether it's relationships, whether it's your career, whether it's entrepreneurship. And that's why I just wanted to end with that, so to give you guys room to think. Like, I already know what I believe, and that's why we wanted to have you on this show, because,
Hold on. One day I was vacuuming and I said, Sarit, we have to get Matt Fury on the show. She's like, who is it? And I was like, you have to read the book. She's like, okay. And so I don't want this to even be our last conversation, because when people like you and us team up, we can reach more people and we can share the message so that more people can figure out how to create that internal, that peace of mind and that happiness by choice, and not live and just let life happen by default. So obviously I dropped a link for the book a couple of times in the comments, and posted also Theater of the Mind that Matt has on Audible.
Yes, on Audible, yes.
Where else can they find you?
You can go to my website. I have a few different websites. I'll give the easiest one, just corresponds with my name, mattfury.com, mattfury.com. Cybernetics specifically, it's the same as the book, just make sure you have the hyphen in it. So Psycho-Cybernetics.com. Those two are my main websites, and you'll find that there's a lot of products, there's a lot of services that are available, and they're all life changers. And I have the daily emails I send out, not as daily as I used to, because I have so many different interests now, but quite often, quite regularly. And there's blogs there that you can go back and read things that I've written, as you called it, bomb dropping. It's been going on for over 20 years.
Amazing.
Started sending emails out in 1996. So,
love it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Matt, thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure. This has been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for taking your time to be on the show. And you guys, for anybody, whatever it is that you want to achieve, if it is not the status quo, be it with regards to your body, be it with regards to raising your children, be it with regards to, your profession, make it a point to not just read this book, but study it. Okay. There's a difference between just reading for reading and getting the most out of something. I believe that if this book was taught in schools, that in and of itself will change a lot of things. And I'd leave you guys with that. Matt, anything else that you'd like to share with us today?
I think you've wrapped it up. I'm not gonna rain on that close there. That was great. So,
awesome.
But I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me on and the opportunity to speak with all your people. And let's do it again sometime. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely. And
we'll connect after this, Matt.
Yeah, if you guys like this, click that share button on the YouTube video, put it on your Facebook post or somewhere if you thought it was valuable, if you got anything from it. The best thing that you can do is just share
Pay
the
it
love,
forward.
pay it forward, pass it on. So thank you guys so much for being here with us live, and anybody watching this back. Matt, we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Guys,
Bye.
have a great
See
Bye.
ya.